Hi class, my name is Nicole Morales and I have the privilege of being able to walk through a little bit about the StrengthsFinder assessment that you took. So this is the first of a couple videos that I will be presenting to you for your class. Hopefully you have taken the Clifton StrengthsFinder at this point and you already have your assessments. So let's get started. So to start off, I'm going to have you do a little bit of a writing challenge. So if you will humor me, go ahead and take out a piece of scrap paper or a piece of paper and a pen. All right. So what you're going to do in this challenge is on one side of the paper or somewhere on the paper, I want you to sign your name when I say go. Sign your name as nicely and neatly as you can, as if you are signing an official document or your check. So I'm going to give you a certain amount of time. You'll probably finish before I say stop, but go ahead and when I say go, sign your name 5 times. Ready? Go. Okay, you can stop. Hopefully you were able to complete your 5 signatures in that amount of time. Some of you might have been waiting around for a while. All right, now next you are going to take your pen, put it in your not dominant hand, your other hand, and somewhere on that paper, I would like for you, when I say go, to start signing your name 5 times with the other hand. Now the key is I want you to try to make it look as closely as you can to your actual signature, all right? So no X's, just try to sign your name as neatly and nicely as you can. Ready? Go. All right, so that was about the same amount of time, about 30 seconds. And I would usually kind of ask for some debrief, but usually what I hear around this challenge is that when people are writing on that first column with their dominant hand, it feels very natural, it's very easy, it's very quick, and their signatures are relatively nice, or how they at least intend them to be. And then when they switch over to that not dominant hand, it gets challenging and frustrating, and it takes longer, and the signatures just don't look as nicely. So this is what we're talking about when we live in our strengths, when we live in these talents, these natural talents that we have. We can get into a rhythm and into this flow of being able to do things quickly, efficiently, nicely, and without much frustration and with a lot of ease. But when we switch to something that is not in our talents and not a strength of ours, we can still maybe accomplish it, but it's going to take us longer. It's going to be more frustrating. It's not going to turn out as neatly some of the time. So this is kind of why we talk about living and working in our strengths. When you have this natural ability, let's say, to write with your right hand, then you're going to just always do that, right? But you're not going to go and maybe one day you said this, but most likely we're not going to say, okay, now I'm going to just start using my left hand and try to do all my work with my left hand because it's a weakness and I should improve on my weakness, right? That's kind of our tendency, is to say that I need to work on my weaknesses. But just like you're not going to pick up a pen in your left hand and then automatically be successful, when we focus so much on our weaknesses, we're going to keep hitting those frustrating points and those just frustration and not being able to really do what we do best. So that's what we're going to be talking about, trying to figure out what we do best and to start to really utilize that. So what's the value behind that? I kind of gave a little introduction to that, but Donald Clifton, the founder of the StrengthsFinder, he went out and tried to study these all these successful people out there and interviewed tons and tons of them, thousands of them, to try to figure out what characteristics really made them successful. One of the studies that first ignited this desire in him was a study about speed reading that took place in the Nebraska school system. They had thousands of 10th graders go through this study, and they took the assessment of where these readers were at, these 10th graders were at in reading initially. So they had a group of average readers that were good, average readers, and then some that were above average, that were reading at a faster level than most 10th graders. Then they put all of these people through a speed reading class. Their hope was that if these average readers learned this speed reading concepts, that they would get up to the above average level, right? So the average readers could hopefully get to the above average readers. And then the above average readers, maybe there'd be a little bit of an increase, but not that much because they're already really good, right? If we work on a weakness, we'll really improve. If we're already strong in something, we don't really need to improve it, right? Well, here's the results. As you can see, the average readers didn't even get to the place where the above average readers started. They improved, but barely. But the above average readers skyrocketed. That's meaning that they were reading at almost 3,000 words per minute. I can't even imagine. So it goes to show that when we work in our strengths, in something that we're naturally talented at, the sky is the limit for how we can improve on that. All right? Hopefully that's a great image for you of why we do this. There's tons of research out there on the impact of living in their strengths. So one area is that Gallup has found that employees who focus on their strengths are 6 times as likely to be successful in their roles. So if you, in your job right now, start to focus on the areas that you are really exceptionally talented in, you will be 6 times more successful. And they're 3 times as likely to say they have a high quality of life. That's pretty dynamic to think about how this has an impact in not only what we do at work, but also what we do in our home life and just our overall quality of life. So I've been throwing out a lot of different terms, and we'll be keeping in this kind of language throughout the different videos that I'm going to be recording. So I'm going to take some time to go over what the difference is between talent, theme, strengths, and domains. All right? So talents are kind of what we're talking about, these natural tendencies that we have. Donald Clifton, when he went out and interviewed all those people, he found that people were successful in all these different areas. So he actually came up with over 400 little talents. So imagine, if you will, all these little dots on a board, 400 of them, right? So I'm just going to give you that visual, kind of 400 stars in the sky, if you will. So these things are they describe who we are. They just kind of describe things that we naturally do or how we maybe make our choices. They also are ways that we just act, right? And they describe why we are better at some things than others, or they help us filter our world. So if you kind of start to think of things, words that maybe describe you, ways that you make your choices, some of the actions you take. Are you somebody that really has to think through things before you say something, or do you just talk on the fly, right? Those are different ways of describing a talent. They're just things that we're naturally prone to. So talent is these natural capacities for excellence that we may all possess. All right. Then we get into themes. Sorry, I still get confused on these or get tripped up on them. So here are our 34 Strength Finder themes. This is the list of the 34 descriptive words. And so basically now imagine the stars in the sky and that you are looking at, and there's 400 of those. Now think about circling up or putting into like one little group and doing 34 of those. So there's so many of these talents that are very similar. So Donald Clifton came up with these 34 names to put kind of like talents together. So this is why when you're reading your description of, let's say, context, you might be reading that and going, well, that's not really me. Oh, but this is really me. So there might be some statements in those descriptions that that don't resonate with you. That's just because you don't have that one little talent, that one little dot within that bigger theme, but you have some of the other talents within that theme very strongly. I hope that makes sense. We'll kind of dive into that a little bit more as we go on. Now, why do we use the word strength? So we've used the word talent and then theme, and then we interchange that a lot with strength, and this is the Strengths Finder assessment, right? Strengths are when we put together talent, so those natural tendencies we have, with the knowledge, and hopefully that's what you're gaining now from taking this assessment or just kind of exploring those talents that you have, with skill and practice. So just like when you first were in preschool or something, your parents or teachers probably tried to figure out, where did you have that natural tendency, right hand or left hand, right? So let's say you were right-handed, and then you started to learn about how to write letters, and you started to practice, and you started to hone in on that skill. That created your signature for what it is today, right? So it was a development for you to get to the point where you could write your name with just an ease and flow. That's a great example of how we have a natural talent to write with our right hand, and then we can build on that with skills and practice. And that's what we hope that you'll take from these videos and from learning about your strengths. All right, the last term we'll use is domains. So now if you take those bigger circles with all those dots inside, those 34 themes, those get broken into 4 domains. So these are often looked at in a team approach, but they're basically, you can see where some of these are more about executing and how we execute. It's about, some of them are about influencing and how we influence others or have some influence in the world. Some are about relationships, and others are more about strategy and strategic thinking. So don't worry too much about this, and there's kind of a caveat. Don't go and start looking at, oh my gosh, I don't have any relationship building themes, I must be horrible at relationships. That's not really what we're looking at here. It's about, because we all can execute and we can all influence, and we all obviously build relationships and think strategically. So even if you don't have a theme in those areas, we'll dive into this more and talk about this a little bit more. But this is another way to categorize these top these 34 themes. So I hope that was a great little introduction. I'll be back with more videos and more activities in a bit. Thanks.